Happy Chanukah to everybody. We're going to start with a Chanukah song called Dreh sich dreidele. Spin yourself, little dreidel. Be happy, little boy, little girl. Dance in a ring, in a circle. Chanukah is here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Chanukah is already here. Dreh sich schon dreidele, freu sich du Jingele, freu sich du Mädele, tanz in a Ringele, tanz in a Redele, es ist schon a Chanukah da. Ja la 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 la, ja 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 la 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 la, da 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 la la la, ja la 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 la. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Jingele Mädele. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tanz in a Redele. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, dreh sich schon dreidele, es ist schon a Chanukah da. Ja la 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 la, ja la 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 la, ja la 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 la, ja da 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 da, ja la 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 la, da 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 da, da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tanz in a Redele. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Jingele Mädele. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, dreh sich schon dreidele, es ist schon a Chanukah da, schon da.
Okay. So since it's Chanukah, we're going to read Sholem Aleichem's Chanukah Gelt. It's a very famous children's story. Guess, children, which holiday is the best holiday of all? Chanukah, of course. 8 days in a row with no school, eating latkes, playing at dreidel, and receiving Chanukah Gelt from everyone. So I ask you, could there be a better holiday? Winter. Outdoors it is cold, the frost burns fiercely. The windows are frozen over, decorated with beautiful frost trees, and inside the house is cozy and warm. The silver Chanukah menorah has stood ready since early morning. Father paces from room to room, his hands clasped behind him as he recites the evening prayers. After standing still for the 18 benedictions, he removes from the table drawer a wax candle, the shamus, to light the others with, and as he recites the concluding prayer, he signals to me and my younger brother Motel, for he is forbidden to speak until the prayer is over. Ah! He stretched forth the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth. Nu! Ah! Motel and I do not understand what he means, and we ask, what do you want? A match? Father points toward the kitchen. Ah! We therefore hope in thee. Nu! What? A bread knife, a pair of scissors? No, feh. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Your mother, call your mother. Let her hear the blessing over the Chanukah candles. My brother and I tear out of the room, almost falling over each other. Mama, hurry, Chanukah candles. Oi, Gott help mir, Chanukah candles, exclaims my mother, abandoning all her work in the kitchen, and hurries into the parlor. And right behind her is Bryna, the scullery maid, a swarthy woman with a mustache, a full face, and forever greasy hands. Mother stands off to the side and takes on a pious expression, while Bryna, the maid, remains standing at the door, wiping her greasy hands on her soiled apron and smearing a black smudge across her whole face. We have to be stronger than iron, I and my brother Motel, to hold ourselves in and not burst out laughing. Father holds a lit shamus candle near the Chanukah menorah, leans over and chants the blessing in the familiar tune. Blessed art thou, and he finishes with to kindle the Chanukah lights. Mother responds with awe in her voice, blessed is he, and blessed be his name, Amen. Bryna nods her head in approval, all the while making such odd faces that I and my brother Motel are afraid to look at each other. The candles that we kindle tonight, Father sings under his breath, and he paces back and forth across the room, glancing at the menorah and praying on and on at great length. We are hoping for it to end soon, so we will put his hand in his pocket and take out his purse. We exchanged winks and nudge one another. Motel, go over and ask him for Chanukah geld. How come I have to ask for Chanukah geld? Because you're younger, so you have to ask. Maybe it's the other way around. You're older, so you have to ask. Father knows all too well that we are whispering about the Chanukah money, but he pretends not to hear. Calmly, unhurriedly, goes over to the table drawer and begins counting money. A little shiver passes through our bodies, our hands tremble, our hearts pound. We look up at the ceiling, scratch behind our earlocks, and try to look indifferent, as if it has nothing to do with us. Father gives a little cough. Children, come over here. What? What's the matter? Here's your Chanukah geld. Now that we have our Chanukah money, off we run, I and my brother Motel, at first slowly, composed and well-mannered, but then faster and faster with a hop and a skip and a jump. By the time we reach our room, we can barely control ourselves. We do 3 handsprings each and hop on one foot, and we chant, Enge, Benge, stupid Senge, Artse, Bartse, Gola, Schwarze, Emele, Remele, Begele, Fegele, hop.
So another Chanukah song, this time in English and Hebrew and Yiddish. Oh Chanukah, please clap and sing along. Oy Chanukah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed their sweet light and remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed their sweet light and remind us of days long ago. La 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 la. Chanukah, Chanukah mikdashenu, begilu v'simcha memalim et libeinu. Laila vayom svivoveinu yisov, sufganiyot nochal bamlarot ha'iru hadliku nerot Chanukah rabim. Al hanisim ve'al haniflaot asher cholelu hamakabim. Al hanisim ve'al haniflaot asher cholelu hamakabim. Oy Chanukah, ayom tefasheiner, alustiker afbelcher, ishto noch azoiner, alle Nacht in Dreidel spielen wir, zu die Käse latkes essen wir, geschwinde sind Kinder, die Chanukah lichterlechon. So jeder was singen dem Wunder und guckt alle tanzen im Korn. Jäter was unter was sinken, dem Wunder und Kunst, alle tanzen im Chor. Ja, da 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 da
Okay, this next story is from the book Vilna, My Vilna, a collection of stories by Avraham Karpinovich, translated from Yiddish by Helen Mintz of Vancouver. And this story is called Jewish Money. There was a Jew who lived at number 10 Dyches Street, where the gate opened into the synagogue courtyard. No one knew how the man survived, and even though the entire building lay open like a deck of cards for Vincenti the janitor, he couldn't give Tzoch the landlord a clear accounting of who the man was or what he did. But the man always paid his rent in advance, he was never a day late, and no matter how often Tzoch asked the janitor where the man got his money, the guy never had an answer. Vilna didn't lack for lunatics. The entire synagogue courtyard was crawling with mixed-up characters. All year long, Yutka the maid chaser ran after all the young ladies, married or single, who walked through the courtyard. Then there was Gedalka the cantor, who screamed that they wouldn't let him sing from the lectern in the city synagogue because he didn't have patent leather shoes. Crazy Rachel, who fancied herself a high society lady, went around in a crinoline she'd gotten from the Yiddish theater. Isserson preached from the steps of the Gravedigger Synagogue that the doors to the lunatic asylum should be opened because that's where the sane people were. The lunatics gathered at Shandel's tea house under the window of the little Goan synagogue. Shandel was the only one who could handle them. But the man didn't go to Shandel's tea house. He had nothing to do with that crazy bunch. The only place in the synagogue courtyard where he went was the Strashon library. When Chaiko Lunsky, the librarian, noticed a man standing in the library doorway and gazing forlornly at the bookshelves, he offered him a chair at the public reading room. The man sat at the edge of the table for almost an hour, strumming his fingers like a condemned person. Lunsky walked up to him and quietly asked, "Can I help you?" The man looked up at the librarian with a pair of dull black eyes that suited his thin, shriveled face. "I would like to know," he mumbled and then clammed up. "Please tell me what you'd like to know. Don't be embarrassed." "I want to know about Jewish money." "About Jewish money? Certainly. What would you like to know?" "Well, we once had a land of Israel. What kind of money did they use?" Lunsky told him about the Romans. They cast coins with the name shekel. "Shekel," the man said. "Shekel is a really beautiful word, don't you agree?" The man explained that he lived alone. His sister in Johannesburg sent him money to cover his expenses. "I figure there'll be a Jewish state one day. All our troubles point in that direction. I've decided to create money for that state. A state without money is nothing." He thought about it for a long time, but now he knew he would call the money shekels. When the man spoke about the future Jewish state, Chaiko Lunsky noticed that his dull eyes lit up with a flame. And so the man introduced Jewish money into Vilna. It wasn't easy. But little by little, the entire area from Yiddish Street all the way to the lumber market on Zavalny Street started using Jewish bills. The exchange rate was a shekel for 10 groschen. Every month, the man showed up to redeem his bills for state zlotys. Lots of people accepted the Jewish money. The man never failed to pay his debts. Each month, like clockwork, he walked through the city redeeming his Jewish money. Even Avromka, the anarchist, the chief used clothing dealer in the passageway, who didn't believe in God, believed absolutely in Jewish money, and sold the man a pair of trousers in exchange for shekels. A large part of Vilna happily participated in the man's dream about Jewish money. But then calamity struck and the entire business collapsed. Someone started counterfeiting the man's money. When the man went to the bakery to settle accounts, he got a wad of bills that weren't his. He immediately fainted and would have breathed his last had someone not poured a can of water over him. Just a week earlier, the man had been the hero of the synagogue courtyard, and now everyone was railing against him. Imagine, he made half of Vilna crazy with his Jewish money, with his buying and his selling. The man's presidency came to an end. He struggled to pay his debts for the counterfeit shekels and was left without a groschen. No matter how much money his sister sent, it wasn't enough to silence all the screaming mouths. If Shandel from the tea house hadn't given the man food, he would have collapsed in the street. He sat at the bare table in his garret, waiting for Vincenti, the janitor, to show up to tell him to come down to the courtyard to talk to Soch, the landlord. He trembled with fear that Soch would ask him to leave because he was behind in his rent. One morning, just before Shavuos, Soch showed up with his carriage and told Vincenti to ask the man to come down. The man came down, and he said in a muffled tone, "Believe me, Mr. Tzok, I didn't drink away the money. Somebody took me for a ride and counterfeited my Jewish money. One day there'll be a state, and this wrong won't be forgotten." Tzok looked at his renter as though seeing him for the first time. One day there'll be a Jewish state? The man said it with such conviction. Maybe he's right. And Tzok, who would have demanded rent from the sparrows on the roof, smiled and said, "Bring down your shekels, all of them. I'll accept them as rent until your sister sends money."
The song Shlovshe Yingele, Sleep Little Boy, is a song that I wrote for my grandson Noah when he was born 10 years ago this month. And I recorded it on my album, Lullabies and Longings. This was one of the lullabies on the album. Sleep, little boy, sleep. Shut your little eyes. Sleep, little boy, my joy. Sleep right through the night. Sleep in good health, my darling child. Mother will knit a hat and socks for you. Father will make you a fine wagon. Grandmother will sew a coat and pants for you. Grandfather will make you a new bed. May you grow and be healthy for many years. May you always have good luck and joy. May you be learned and make a good living. May you be a good person, a mensch, and a good father too. Shlovshe Yingele, Shlof macht zu die Egele, Shlovshe Yingele, mein Glück. Shlovshe Yingele, Shlof, sehr still a ganze Nacht. Schlaf gesund, mein Teilkind. Die Mame wird dir stricken, Hitelech und Säckelech, der Tate wird dir machen, a Wägele, a Feins, die Bobbe wird dir nähen, a Mantele und Häselech, der Seide wird dir machen, a Bettele, a Neis. Schlafsche Yingele, Schlaf macht zu die Egelech, Schlafsche Yingele, mein Glück. Schlafsche Yingele, Schlaf, still a ganze Nacht, Schlaf gesund, mein Teilkind. sollst du wachsen groß und sein gesund bis lange Jahren, soll dir Tomet sein, mit Masel und mit Glück, sollst du sein gelernt, gut Parnasse haben, sollst du sein ein Mensch und ein guter Tate euch. Ja, la, 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 la. Ja, la, la, la. Ja, la. The next song, Wo nimmt man a bissele Mazel? Asks the question, where do we find a little luck? After all, what do we really need in life? This song says we need a little luck, a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück. May the wheel keep turning and bring my luck back to me. The world was created for everyone equally. So where do we find a little luck? People often rush around searching for luck so much they lose sight of it. So what is the answer? Where can we find a little luck? Wo nimmt man a bissele Mazel? Wo nimmt man a bissele Glück? Das Rädele soll sich schon drehen und bringen mein Mazel zurück. Die Welt ist beschaffen geworden für alle Menschen gleich. Wo nimmt man a bissele, chotsch nur a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück? Wo nimmt man a bissele, chotsch nur a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück? Die Menschen, sie suchen sehr Mazel, sie laufen, sie jagen sich ihr. Sag mal, sie lassen das Mazel, sie gehen und laufen zurück. Man kennt das schon mehr nicht, der Jagen, kein Mal mehr nicht, haben zurück. Wo nimmt man a bissele, chotsch nur a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück? Oi, wo nimmt man a bissele Mazel? Wo nimmt man a bissele Glück? Das Rädele soll sich schon drehen und bringen mein Mazel zurück. Die Welt ist beschaffen geworden für alle Menschen gleich. Wo nimmt man a bissele, chotsch nur a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück? Wo nimmt man a bissele, chotsch nur a bissele Mazel, a bissele Glück?
Okay, this next story is from the Slicebox, an anthology of Canadian Jewish writing, and it was written by Larry Zolf, who was worked for many years for the CBC. but you have to remember that this was written in 1968 during the Vietnam War. Boil me no melting pots and dream me no dreams. When the Fathers of Confederation built this country in 1867, there was universal agreement among all Canadians, English and French-speaking, that there was no place for the American dream on the northern half of this continent. Canada was a conservative country, the land of particularity. The entity known as Anglo-Saxon British Canada was prepared to tolerate the particularity of French Canada and the Slavic, German, Jewish, Oriental particularities of the Golden West, provided all accepted the British monarchy. This then was the lay of the land in the year 1926, when an obscure ex-Tsarist draft dodger, an ex-infantryman, and an Alexander's Kerensky Revolutionary Army decided to emigrate to these shores, none other than my father, Felix Zoll. My father was a dreamer. In his youth, he dreamed of a Russia where life and liberty were inseparable, but he had to give up that dream. Suddenly along came Canada, the British colony that dreamed no dreams and offered Pa the peasant a chance to join the Galician colonizers that were cultivating the flatlands of the Canadian West. All this by way of introduction to a fundamental confusion in my father's life, which led to a subsequent fundamental confusion in my life. My father ultimately drifted into Winnipeg and renewed an occupation he once pursued secretly in Poland, at some risk to his own life, the teaching of Jewish liberal socialist values to Jewish children. He became first a teacher and then principal of the Isaac Leigh Parrott's Folk School in Winnipeg. This school was a branch of a school system and school curriculum with central headquarters in New York. Herein lies the rub. My father, unaware of all the trouble Sir John A. and the fathers had gone to, just naturally assumed that Canada was part of the American dream. As my father's English was not very good, and his reading was strictly confined to Yiddish books and newspapers from New York, it's not surprising that Pop soon came to regard Winnipeg as just another borough. It was natural, almost proper, that my father should pass the American dream on to me, his youngest and first to be born on the very soil of Canada, America. Until I was 13 years old, I was enrolled in the day school section of the Isaac Leigh Parrott's School. My father was my teacher. There I learned to read from the Yiddish Dick and Jane, Max and Molly primer. It was in Yiddish that I first read the classics. Today, as I reflect on the validity of the American dream then and now, a certain sense of nostalgic silliness seems to overtake me. I can understand the validity of the American dream for my father. In the bitter anti-Semitism of Tsarist Russia and Sikorsky's Poland, he was considered subhuman. In Auschwitz and Dachau, he and his fellow Jews were not human at all. In the American melting pot, he was not only human, he was an involved participant and equal. Still, I'm glad to be here in Canada. Whatever that word, and to be Canadian, whatever that word means, I'd rather be somewhat an outsider in Canada than an equal accepted participant in the American nightmare. I am aware that we have avoided American pitfalls more by accident than by design. I realize that we don't have America's responsibility and therefore her problems. Well, huzzah, I'm glad we don't, and to hell with the reasons. I know this country has not quite made up its mind about what it wants to be. It has ceased being British and thankfully has not yet become American. If there is anything still valid to the British heritage left us by the Fathers of Confederation, let it be this. Let the country to continue to be the dream, the land of un-American activities. Boil me no melting pots and dream me no dreams.
The song Freitag auf der Nacht was written by Nochem Sternheim. And he describes what Friday night at home was like. Very sweet song. I'd like to share it with you. I remember Friday nights and how we sang Semiras, Shabbat song after the meal. Father would beat out the time with a spoon and snap his fingers, while Bobbe, grandmother, would shake her head to the rhythm. On Shabbos, we didn't go to cheder, to school. What a pleasure. Strolling back from shul, synagogue, Father would hum a beautiful niggun, a melody. Then Father would test me on the Gemara. You're growing up to be quite a scholar, he'd say, and pinch my cheek. When night came, Mother would stand at the window deep in thought, and Baba would read from the Tzenerene. She used to tell us funny stories that made us laugh so hard that our eyes filled with tears. Oh, what a pleasure and joy. And Nochem Sternheim lived from 1879 until the Holocaust. Der Mann sich in dem Freitag auf der Nacht. Oi, was war a Schires. Der Tate mit die Kinder salbe 8. Pflegen, singen es Mires. Pflegt der Tate sich wegsetzen. Zu backen mit a Löffele. Und geben mit dem Finger a Knack. Fleck die Bobbe mit dem Geuter. Schocklen mit dem Käppele. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Yadi bam. Yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye bye yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye. Shabbos heint in de cheder geht mir nit. Oi a fargenigen. Der Tate geht von Davnen Tritt bei Tritt. Und murmelt still an Nicken. Fleckt der Tate sich wegsetzen, verherren die Gemorde und geben mir a Knippele in Back. Es wächst der Talent hochem, fleckt der Sorgen keine Hore. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye bye yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye. Es fleckt kommen. Der Schabes auf der Nacht. Pflegen wir sich in die Winkelech verrücken. Die Mama steht beim Fenster und vertracht. Die Bobbe tut Tzenerene gucken. Fleckt die Bobbe uns der erzählen. Am Eise von 3 Pritz im Blech. Was blonchen in der Finster mit der Hack. Pflegen kinderlich begießen sich, mit Trärerlech wie Perlech. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Oi weh, wie Geschmack. Yadi bum. Yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye bye yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi bye yadi bye bye yadi bum bum yadi bum bum yadi yaddy bye, yaddy bye. And the next song is another Hanukkah song, not in Yiddish, but in Ladino, a song that the Jews spoke. It started in Spain, so the base of it is Spanish, and one of my favorite Ladino folk songs, Ocho Candelicas, 8 little candles. It's here, beautiful Hanukkah, 8 little candles for me. 1 little candle, 2 little candles, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little candles for me. I'll throw plenty of parties full of joy and pleasure. I'll eat little pastries with almonds and honey. Need another minute, sorry. Chanukah linda está aquí, 8 candelas para mí. Chanukah linda está aquí, 8 candelas para mí. Oh, una candelica, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí. Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegrías y placer. Muchas fiestas vou fazer con alegría y placer. Oh, una candelica, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí. Los pastelicos vou comer con almendricas y la miel. Los pastelicos vou comer con almendricas y la miel. Oh, una candelica, 2 candelicas, 3 candelicas, 4 candelicas, 5 candelicas, 6 candelicas, 7 candelicas, 8 candelas para mí.
Okay. This story is called Preposterous Papa. It's an excerpt from a book that Louis Mayer, who was a Tulsa lawyer and television personality, wrote about his father. They grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. Papa spoke Yiddish with an Arkansas accent. He had little opportunity to hear Yiddish spoken, but when he did hear it, he plunged into the conversation like a long-lost brother. Papa never remembered anyone having taught him to speak Yiddish nor to read Hebrew. I just absorbed them, he said, picked them up along the line. Hebrew scholars who suddenly heard Papa's voice reading Hebrew prayers looked shocked and disbelieving. On the other hand, we who knew no Hebrew at all marveled at Papa's seeming ability to hold his own with the others. My father believed in God and prayer and in doing right. Although he knew little if anything about the service itself, he preferred the Orthodox manner of worship to the Reformed service in English. The Orthodox Jews are the only real Jews, he said. They pray the way the prayers were written to be prayed. Papa compromised, however, on the house of worship he built in Sapulpa. He made it possible for both Orthodox and Reformed Jews to hold services in the same place. On the high holy days, the Orthodox group began at 7 in the morning and took an intermission from 10 until noon. During this period, the Reformed worshippers trooped in and held their services in English. Then the Orthodox resumed their prayers until the afternoon break, when the Reform element took over again. Papa, who felt a Reform service was better than no service at all, stayed through it all. When Papa first came to Oklahoma, he and Mama made what was the long trip to Tulsa for the Jewish holidays. But 4 children complicated this system to the point where religion became a chore. After taking a one-man poll of all the elements in the county, Papa was convinced there'd be a willing Jewish congregation right there in Sapulpa if they had a place to pray. He had his eye on a large corner lot, and without consulting anyone but himself, he bought it. He then designed one of the strangest temples imaginable. From the street, it looked like a neat, comfortable home, but on the other side, it opened into a large living reception area with a temple that was large enough to accommodate 100 worshippers. There was a rostrum at one end containing a large raised prayer table. The east wall contained an enclosure which held the Holy Torah. The pews were highly polished pine benches. When strangers entered this bright and cozy place of worship, they got a homey feeling. This was exactly the impression Papa wanted them to get. A temple should be like a home, because the Lord lives there. Papa footed the bill for the works, the lot, the house temple, the modest furnishings, the prayer books, and the Torah itself. There won't be any taxes to pay because it's a church. Dues and fees was a subject Papa expounded on with great feelings. I've noticed that they do 1/10 praying and 9/10 begging in a lot of churches. People don't need to be browbeaten into giving to the Lord. They hate like hell to put it on a pay-as-you-pray basis. Once our little temple gets going, it won't cost anybody anything to come and worship God. It'll be plain looking enough so people won't have to feel that they have to dress up in fancy clothes just to enter it. Through the years, it worked the way Papa planned it. The structure is still there, surrounded by giant trees. News of Papa's temple spread to all the small towns in the area. People who felt they could not afford the city temples were there, where there were fixed prices for seats and where most of the worshippers were expensively dressed, came to Sapulpa to worship in the little temple house. There was no choir, there were few trimmings, but everybody that came to pray went away with a good feeling.
That song made me think about my father. And this song that I wrote for him and recorded, Mein Tate. My father was a mensch, a treasure, a beloved grandfather who worked hard from his youth until he grew old. Mein Tate is given, a mensch a tired, a guter Mann, a seide beliebt. Hat gearbeitet schwer, alle seine Jahren, von frühen Jugend bis alt geworden. A mensch who protected and defended his treasured family and friends. His heart and hands remained forever open, with nothing expected in return. Oy, 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 oy. Der Tate halt dein Hand, a father holds your hand, wischt die Tränen ab, wipes your tears away, and brightens up your day. Oy, 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 oy. Der Tate hot dich lieb, a father loves you so. Und zu jeder Zeit, a love that has no end. He is your dearest friend. My father used to love to hear our family singing. In our home, music filled the air. His favorite request, a soulful Yiddish song, was his true delight and greatest pleasure. A Mensch, was hat sein Leben gewidmet, seine Sprache und seine Freund, gegeben hat von tiefen Herzen, gar nicht gefordert bei keinem. Oi, oi, oi. Der Tate halt dein Hand, a father holds your hand, wish die Tränen up, wipes your tears away, and brightens up your day. Oi, 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 oi. Der Tate hat dich lieb, a father loves you so. Und zu jeder Zeit, a love that has no end. He is your dearest friend. And to close the program, we'll do a lively song. Please sing along, clap along. Alle Brider. We're all brothers and sisters and sing happy songs. We stay together, always united, caring for one another. We're happy and lively, always singing and dancing. Wir seien alle Brider, oi, oi, alle Brider. Wir singen freiliche Lieder, oi, oi, oi. Und wir halten sich in einem, oi, oi, sich in einem. Selches ist nicht so bei keinem, oi, oi, oi. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Und wir seien alle Schwestern, oi, oi, alle Schwestern, also wie Rochel, Ruth, Esther, oi, oi, oi. Wir halten sich in einem, oi, oi, sich in einem, sie wird seinen viel zu weinen, oi, oi, oi. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ai, 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 ai. Ay, 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 ay. Wir lieben sich doch alle, oi, oi, sich doch alle, wie Achossen mit der Kalle, oi, oi, oi. Und wir seien freilich munter, oi, oi, freilich munter, singen Lieder, tanzen unter, oi, oi. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. ay, ay,